Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ibironke Olubamiche. Thank you for joining me today. Last week I spoke about pesticides and I gave a definition of pesticides, organic pesticides and inorganic or chemical pesticides. I gave examples of the different types of pesticides, which include insecticides and so on. And I gave example of, I spoke about the effect of using pesticides on ourselves and on the environment. Today I want to buttress a little bit more about insecticide. It's a common thing. We use insecticides in our houses, like I mentioned before. We use it to control mosquitoes, to control cockroaches, and on the farms we use it to control pests like termites. What I want to say again about pesticide is that actually it is a global practice. The smell that we perceive when we use insecticides is actually a form of control for us to run away from pesticides when we use them. The active ingredient that actually kill the insects and the pests is not perceivable. Many of them, we can't smell them. They are odorless, they are colorless. But because they are very dangerous, so it was a global decision that, okay, if we want to continue to use the insecticide, then add a chemical or some form of component that will make people to run away from it when we use it. So when you go to the store and you have the temptation of buying some of the insecticides that they tell us that they are less odorless, they have less odor, and that they don't contain so much of this repelling smell, I would appreciate and advise that you think twice before you buy them, because the active ingredient is not usually that repelling smell. So talk about pesticide in foods. We have pesticide in beans, legumes, all forms of beans, because beans, grains, vegetables. The essence is, like we know, to preserve them so that they last longer. But the effect on us can be very, very lethal, at times leading to death. I remember a story of a family that consumed beans the night before, and by the next morning, some of them were dead. And it was traced to the beans that they consumed the day before. So pesticides can be very, very dangerous. Apart from death, they cause some diseases: skin irritation, nausea, eye problems, stinging eyes, tired eyes, dizziness, and a whole lot of discomforts and diseases. Some of them we may not even see the effect immediately, maybe years down the line, and then it becomes so difficult for us to trace it back to whether it is as a result of the pesticides that we have consumed in the food. So it is important for us to be mindful. Does cooking, some people say cooking, boiling, blanching, and all sorts can remove pesticides. I don't think so, and I think we should be cautious, because in some instances cooking actually creates another form of chemical reactions which can even become more dangerous. But it doesn't mean that they can remove, the chemicals in the food. Rather, what people have suggested, and which I also subscribe to, is the use of salt, for example, to wash some of these foods before they are actually cooked. When you use salt to wash them, that salt absorbs, because salt has the property to absorb. That salt can absorb some of these chemicals, and then when you wash them, then you can cook them. So what is my admonition again? One, I mentioned before that when you go to the store, be mindful of the insecticide that you buy, if you must buy. Two is also that we have to go organic. I mentioned last week, of course, because pesticides are some of the things that make them attractive is that they are cheap, they are easy to use, they are easy to find, and so they take a whole lot of stress off us if we use inorganic pesticides. But when we think of the effects, then we may want to think of the alternative. And the alternative that I'm talking about is for us to go organic.